2021, we're talking about a lot of the stuff you've done in your career. And, Goldberg's in one of the Royal Rumble main events. Sting's going to be doing a cinematic match at the next AEW pay per view. But it kind of feels like different reactions for both. The Goldberg reaction doesn't seem to be hugely positive. Now, I mean, he came back last year and did the thing with Bray Wyatt, which was quite divisive with fans. Now he's back working with Drew. Do you think there is a way for Goldberg to kind of do something in wrestling where he can leave it with fans having a good feeling towards him? Why do you think that there's maybe a combative nature with the online and people's reactions to him in 2021?
I think there's a couple reasons. Number one, I don't think Bill ever really cemented his relationship with the audience. When Bill first came out, he was new, he was different, he was exciting, the energy, the pyro, he was a powerful character, did a great job with his character. His matches were fast and decisive. Those were all things that got him over, right? But once you get over, staying over is a much bigger challenge. Mm-hmm. Getting over sometimes is a lot easier than staying over. Bill got over very quickly. And part of that was because of timing. Bill came to WCW at the peak of WCW success. And there were Hogans and Stings and Lugers and Savages and, all kinds of other top talent, for Bill to work with and to get the rub from. The business as a whole across the board was at a fever pitch. It was at a point where it had never previously been or has been since in terms of the popularity of professional wrestling. So, and Bill was a powerful character. So the moon and the stars all lined up perfectly for Bill. But once he got over, I think fans began to get a little bit disenchanted with him because of his lack of skill sets. Meaning, simply put, Bill couldn't go out and have a 20 or 30-minute match with Ric Flair. He couldn't do it. He didn't have the skill sets. He couldn't go out and have a 20-minute match with Randy Savage. He couldn't go out and have a 20-minute match with anybody that looked good, that involved more than the 2 or 3 or 4 things that Bill was really proficient at doing. And by the way, this is going to sound like I'm criticizing Bill, and I'm not, because Bill was brand new. Bill, he broke into the business on a Monday and he was over as hell by Thursday, right? And in the process, he hadn't developed the experience and the skill set. He hadn't spent 5 years or 10 years or 15 years as a journeyman working his way up and learning and gaining all this experience and developing a skill set that would allow him to have different styles of matches with different types of people. He had a half a dozen moves and a powerful character. And I think once the audience kind of felt like, okay, we've been there, we've seen it, we've done it, what's next? No pun intended. There was no next. It was the same match over and over and over again. And essentially, and I think the fans kind of, once they saw through Bill and realized he didn't really have a lot of skills, they became a little disenfranchised with him. And that happens in professional wrestling. We saw it with Roman Reigns a while back. When you shove talent down the audience's throat, when you just keep pushing them and pushing them and pushing them, before the audience is ready for them, they gag. I say this to people all the time. My favorite food is great sushi and good curry, thanks to you. But if I go to a sushi bar, no matter how hungry I am, if somebody's cramming sushi down my throat, I'll eventually get sick of it. And that's what happens when you push somebody the way we pushed Bill Goldberg. The audience started resenting it. He got too fat. He got too big, too fast. He didn't pay his dues. And this is a subconscious thing that I think a lot of wrestling fans feel. He just didn't pay his dues. He didn't deserve to be in the spot he was in their opinion. He did, in my opinion, because he was making money for us. But in the audience's opinion, he didn't. So I think it's a large part of that. I think a large part of is, some of the things that Bill has said, after he left WCW, before he got to WWE the first time. He was pretty critical of a lot of people and a lot of things. And I think that kind of comes back to haunt you at a certain point. And now that he's in WWE, unfortunately, and again, this is not a criticism of anybody, but they're kind of doing the same thing with Bill that they did with Roman. They're these storylines make no sense. Bill coming out of nowhere to challenge Drew McIntyre. Why? What's the reason for that? What's the storyline reason? What's the motivation? Not to sound like trying to be a movie director, but if you've got a big, powerful character coming on into a story, there's got to be motivation for it. There's got to be a reason for it if you want the audience to pay attention to it. If you just book the match and throw it up against the wall, kind of like we were talking about a minute ago, several minutes ago, if you just book the match because, oh, Drew McIntyre, Bill Goldberg, oh, man, that looks great. Oh, wow, crowd will go nuts. No, they won't, unless you give them a reason to go nuts. And that's what the part that everybody skips. That's what I mean when I say going back to formula. You know, give Drew McIntyre and Bill Goldberg an opportunity to be successful by having the discipline and the commitment to lay out a story and fill some of the holes that are otherwise just going to be there, and you're going to step in it, and the audience go, they're doing that again. And that's what they've done with Bill. They haven't really told any real stories. They just bring him in to fulfill whatever obligations he has left under his contract. Okay, we got that match out of the way. We got 2 more before the end of 2023. Let's get it done. They'll bring him back next year and they'll do the same thing. The audience doesn't care. There's nothing there. There's nothing for them to care about. So I think that's part of it.
And and then Sting's the last thing. I mean, Sting is now in AEW, and he did the brief WWE run in 2015, and then he obviously got injured. He always wanted the match with Undertaker. It never really happened. I mean, it feels like this Sting deserves to have a way to go out kind of on a high. So, I mean, do you kind of feel like it's good that he's getting to go to AEW and do something where he kind of gets to go out on his own terms?
I am so happy for Steve Morgan, Sting, because at this stage of his life, everything that he's been through, and he's been through a lot, good and bad, like all of us have, it's life. But Sting has always maintained his character. I mean, not his TV character, as a human being. He's always maintained his integrity. That's a better way to say it. And the difference between Sting and Bill Goldberg is the audience has watched Sting since when? Late 80s? 88, 89, whatever it was, 90 with Ric Flair, and watched him grow and progress. And, they've been on the journey with Sting for a long time. And because they've been on the journey with him, they feel closer to him. They identify with him more. Sting has maintained his integrity. He hasn't done any, really stupid things out in public. He hasn't said things that he's regretted, like some of us have, myself included, or Bill Goldberg, I think in some cases, or other people, many other people. Sting has always maintained his integrity as a professional and a human being. So I think at this stage of his life, the audience wants it for him more than he wants it for him, which is perfect. When the audience wants you to succeed more than you want you to succeed, it's a home run. You've knocked it out of the park. You've won the World Series. But when you want it, or the promoter wants it, and the audience really doesn't, you've got resentment. And I think Sting, because of the way he's conducted himself throughout his entire career, because of the kind of human being that he is, and the audience knows that. They may not know why and how, but they sense it because of who he is, the professional that he is, how he's conducted himself. And, he came out and said, look, I'm here. I don't want to end my career on a positive note. I get that. I said the same thing when I went back to WWE the first time. The audience wants it for him as badly as he does. And I think that's just perfect. And I'm so grateful that he has this opportunity, because if anybody deserves it, he does.